Hello everyone, for this anatomy lesson today, we're going to be learning about the organs in the abdominal cavity. And you don't really need to know the functions, but I'm sure we know all the functions of the organs inside the abdominal cavity. But we're going to be learning about the locations. So right here is a picture of a little orange cat because it's trying to show that the diaphragm is in a very similar area as to where it would be in the human. The diaphragm is right there. It's labeled to this little area which has a lot of grooves in it and goes downwards, and I like to think of it as just right below the lung, and the ribs are cut to be able to see this a little bit better. But if they were there, you would just have to kind of reach under the ribs to find that area. But it's the exact same thing in the cat. It's just right below the lung area. And the greater omentum, these look very similar, but the one on the left is the picture of the human, and then the one on the right is a picture of a cat. The greater omentum I like to think of as a apron looking thingy that is protection for your organs. It's usually this very yellowy color, and it's a lot of tissue that can be lifted up when you dissect your cat. So it is one of the easiest things to find when you cut open the midsection of your cat, and it is just, I just like to remember it as this sort of apron looking thing that can be lifted up. Now we're going to see the intestines. We're going to start with the stomach, which is above the large and small intestine. So it'll be the first thing you'll see in the cavity. It's the highest part, and it looks pretty much the same in cats. Sometimes if you cut the stomach open, you could see rugae, depending on whether the stomach is empty or if it's full. You might not be able to see it on a full stomach, but if it is on an empty stomach and you're dissecting a cat with an empty stomach, you can see rugae, which is has these really unique little patterns, and they help with the stretching of the organ. Um, the large intestine is called the large intestine because it is a lot wider than the small intestine, but it is going to be the exact same in the cat again. It kind of looks a little bit different in color to be able to show you which one is which, but it's going to look practically the same when you dissect the cat. It's going to basically go like up, left, right, down in a way. And I like to think of them as a lot thicker, so then that would be considered the large intestine. And the small intestine is a lot longer than the large intestine, but it is labeled right here in this little chart, and it's also labeled on the little chart with this little orange cat right here. I like to think of it as a little tangly mess, and that's how I can identify that it is the small intestine, because it is all tangled up because of how long it is. And it's called the small intestine because it's a lot thinner than the large intestine. These are little thin-ish tube-like structures which are very functional in the human body, and it is very, very useful in the process of digestion. Connecting them together would be these little things called mesenteries. So mesenteries are little tissue-like structures that will kind of hold these organs in place. And on the left is a picture of a human. They're performing a surgery on a person, and you're able to see these mesenteries. They're slightly different in color to the small intestine, and they have unique patterns on them. On the human, it looks a little more stripy, but the color difference is a lot more evident in the picture of the cat, which is on the right. And they look a little bit thinner, but they're still a lot different in colors, and they have very unique patterns, and they're very easy to identify on either species. So now we're going to be talking about the colon. The colon is kind of hard to see, honestly. Um, but it is just kind of under all of these structures. That's the best that I am able to put it, honestly. Um, but we're able to see in this picture everything else, like the gallbladder, the liver, the spleen, the yeah, the bladder even, but that's not part of the abdominal cavity. We're also able to see the appendix. Um, but yeah, we're able to see not really able to see the colon that well, which is unfortunate, but I think if you're able to lift up all of the intestines, you're able to kind of feel around and find it. And it's the same exact situation with the cat, um, unfortunately. But right here we have the liver as well, which looks the same on the cat. Um, it would be on, if you're looking at this video, it would be on your left. Um, yeah, this is like the big part of the kidney. I mean, the liver. And yeah, now we're going to look at the transverse colon. I think of transverse as just going across your body in a way that's just from left to right. So this would be considered the transverse colon in this picture of a human above right here. And the ascending colon would be the part that is on the left side or your right side, depending on how you want to see it. It's going to go up, so that's why it's called the ascending colon. And then the descending colon is on the other side, going right down into the sigmoid colon, which is like very low down here. And then that leads to the rectum and the anal canal, and they all encircle the small intestine area. And the appendix is a very, very small structure, which is a vestigial structure. It's not useful, but if it were to get inflamed, it's this little thing which I like to say it's attached to the cecum. The cecum is just the big part right there on this chart right here on the left, but you can kind of see the appendix on this side, and on the picture on the right side you could see an inflamed appendix, which is just a thing that looks like a worm, if anything. Yeah, it looks like a worm, and that's how it looks like when it's inflamed, but this could be very dangerous, and if your appendix were to burst, it could be a fatal situation, so it's best to get that removed, since it's not necessary in the human body anyways. Now we're going to be looking at the liver. Um, this whole thing right here is the liver, but they have a lot of veins, arteries, ducts, just structures in general. First, we see the most obvious, which is the gallbladder. The gallbladder looks green. In your cat dissection, you're going to be able to see it because it is just a green, small circular structure. And it is, yeah, it is just very easy to determine because it is a different color than everything else is. But going into the hepatic artery, of course, the arteries are going to be red while the veins are going to be blue. So you could see in this little chart on the right side of you, you're going to see the hepatic artery, which is the red tube-like structure. And the blue is going to be the hepatic vein. They both go downwards and they go throughout, they kind of all spread out throughout the liver, and they go down, back down here. And you see these little purple ones meeting up and coming back down. This would be the hepatic portal vein. And then you can also see the common bile duct in here. You could see this little Okay, so we're gonna look at this little green duct, which is the common bile duct, which is next to the gallbladder, and it is going to be sticking outside of the liver. That's how I like to think of it. In both pictures, it's sticking just outside of the liver, and it is next to the duodenum opening as well. You could think of it that way too. And it goes into the pancreas, which is this different colored to be able to determine what structure it is. Kind of looks like a leaf in a way, at least in this picture, so that's how you can determine it. We're going to talk about the left and the right hepatic duct. The right and the left are going to join together. They're these little green thingies, look like tree branches. They're going to join together and become the common hepatic duct, so they combine into one and they become one thing. And the cystic duct is kind of like a third branch, but it's a little bit far off from the right and the left hepatic duct, and it is going to join into and become the common bile duct as well. It is also splitting to become the gallbladder as well. That's why these ducts are green in color, just like the gallbladder is. And we're also going to look at the veins and the arteries within the liver. Of course, veins are blue, arteries are red. So this red tube-like structure is going to be called the hepatic artery, and all these little red patterns that look like they're branching out throughout the liver are going to be the hepatic arteries. They're all going to be little arteries inside, but the big one is going to be sticking out and under as well. And then the same thing with the hepatic vein, but it's going to be in blue. So it's easy to tell them apart from each other just by common sense, common knowledge. And they're going to both stick out in the bottom. And then you see these purple little branch-like structures. They're going to come down and kind of wrap around almost and become the hepatic portal vein. So the hepatic portal vein is going to be purple-ish, while the rest of them are going to be red and blue. And then we have the gallbladder and the common bile duct in both structures. We have the liver as a whole, which yeah, it looks very funny in this way, but it's going to be larger in one side of your body than the other, as I stated earlier on. And then the last thing we're going to be worrying about today is the spleen. I like to think of it as the structure that is kind of next to the stomach but slightly under the stomach. So you would kind of have to lift up the stomach structure to be able to fully see what the spleen is, and then get its blood supply from the veins and the arteries. But yeah, that is basically all you need to know about the abdominal cavity, and I hope you enjoyed this video and I hope you learned something from this. Thank you.